Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Hey, you solved the box and now I'm here.
What a booby prize. This is a horror movie podcast. We talk about horror films every week. We get together, we've watched a movie, we talk about it. It's really that simple. And we are banking episodes way in advance because... Oh, yeah.
We're kind of like Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Oh, God. No.
We come together. Yeah, it's like it was in the trailer.
We're back in episodes in advance. So while it's actually November 2020 right now, this episode I don't believe will be up till early May. So hopefully the future in 2021 is brighter. Yeah. Yes. Have a happy new year, kind of. Although it's too late for that at this point anyway. But hey.
Does the Snyder Cut come out in 2021? When does that come out?
I think it's 2021. That's what they said.
Okay. Cool.
I mean, they just said 2021 though. I mean, it could be December 31st, 2021, for all we know.
Well, hopefully not. Can't wait.
Tim's being facetious right now, just in case anyone thinks he's being serious. I know he's game. So
hey, I heard they added 4 more minutes. For $70 million, 4 more minutes. Can't wait.
Well, I mean, I believe a lot of that went to new effects and post-production for all the other footage that was shot already but wasn't used previously. I'm not even trying to defend anything. I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm just like, yeah, I hate the movie. Okay, I hate the movie too. That's not. Why are we talking about it? Tim, do you realize how old this news is by the time this episode goes out? Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 might be out by the time this episode goes out.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway,
would you rather speak about today's movie?
Where's my Larry David gif of him struggling with the awful choices? So yes, we're here today to talk about Hellraiser Deader, which is the 7th Hellraiser film, which puts us about halfway through the franchise. And this came out in 2005. Not to be confused with the next one, which also came out in 2005. Yeah. They were pumping these things out.
And I was confused because on my DVD, I have the 6-film DVD Hellraiser collection, where it's absolutely like no special features or anything. They just throw like 3 through 7 or 8 or whatever onto 2 discs. But on the menu, they do have this one last. So it's like
really
Hellseeker. Yeah, it's Hellseeker, Hellworld, and then Deader. And I'm like, wait, I think we're doing Deader, but then why this is out of order? I don't.
Yeah, I mean, every time you do a Hellraiser movie, I just say Hellraiser, 6, 7, 8, and I have to actually look up on Wikipedia before I go to find the movie which one it is I'm actually doing, because I never know. It doesn't help that the titles are so similar as well. Hellseeker, Hellworld. So obviously we've been working through this franchise for the past, by the time this goes out, 2 years give or take. So we're making good time on it. That we're number 7. Yeah, I mean, how do I preface this one? It's about a cult of people called Deaders, that a journalist, an American journalist who's living in London, who is sent to Budapest to investigate this mysterious cult of Deaders, which is worth investigating because they've sent in a videotape of seemingly bringing someone back from the dead, which makes them less dead, not deader, but that's, whatever. And that's the premise, and she goes and investigates, and of course creepy things happen, and if you're lucky, Pinhead might show up at some point. Because of course he was added in after the original script was written.
I mean, already sounds like Hellraiser to me.
Well, I mean, one of the things we've talked about, Tim, as we've went through these movies, particularly from the 4th one onwards, is exactly what Pinhead's goals and motivations are, and what is it he actually does, because it seems to change every single movie, and has done since the first, say, 3. I mean, 3, I think changed that a little bit, but 3 was supposed to kind of like be saying, oh, things are changing, so whatever. But ever since then, he's just had a completely different goal at every movie. It baffles me.
And not just Pinhead necessarily, but like the box as well. Like it seems like it's always used like for something different in this movie, and like to the point where, you know, I was kind of like, you still have to solve the box, right? Because I mean, I don't want to get too spoilery, but like basically someone just kind of throws it and like
yeah, someone throws it and it's like Thor just threw Mjolnir in the room and electricity starts firing from everywhere. Yeah, I trying to follow the logic or the rules or the continuity, dare I say, in these movies is baffling. Especially since in this movie there's a character who is just casually referenced at one point of being the descendant of the person who made the box. And I'm like, wait a minute. We already had a whole movie about a descendant of the person who made the box. And I mean, is it supposed to... That character... Okay, I forget these movies because they're so forgettable, right? But did the character in that movie have a kid who survived by the end? Is this supposed to be that kid growing up? Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, so the one that really gets into the backstory was number 4, with the one with Adam Scott, and it starts in France and ends in space, as all good movies do. And yeah, I do think the middle segment of that one, was all about like the modern day person, and I believe, a big portion of it was about, you know, his wife and kid, and while he was doing all the crazy architecture, I think they were kind of like running around from Cenobites and stuff. So, I guess that kid probably would have survived. I don't know if anyone who wrote the movie thought too hard about it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it tells you a lot that we can't even struggle to remember some of these key details from previous movies because, again, they're so nonsensical and bland that it's hard to remember these things. So one of my bigger problems, I mean, obviously, usually okay, Tim, what did you think of Hellraiser Dead before we get into it?
No, it's not good at all. I mean, it's I mean, that's what you kind of, these later sequels are known for, is that, you know, they're obviously not Hellraiser movies and they just get Pinhead shoved in them. And I feel like we see, you know, more and more examples of this. Like, I think this might be the most outrageous one to date. Because I mean, at least like the last one was trying to, you know, like fit in some continuity stuff and bring back characters and stuff. Like, this just feels really, really like an afterthought. There's some horrible CGI, like laughably bad. Yeah, and I think the big thing you're going to talk about, because you're talking about it online, but this is just super, super boring. Like,
it is sleep-inducing. It is unbelievable how boring it is.
Yeah, like at least maybe some of the other ones, well, not so much these later sequels, but I think like the last one, at least every now and again, I was kind of chuckling at some of the stupidity and how dumb some of the stuff was, and how like every woman was trying to sleep with like the main character and stuff. Like, at least there was funny stuff like that. This was just really dull, other than like, you know, the few kind of Hellraiser-y stuff and like bad CGI stuff. But and it's only like 89 minutes, you know, it's not like it's like you know, 2 hours, like, oh man, it's like, no, it's like a short movie, but yeah,
it doesn't feel short. It doesn't feel short when you're watching it at all. There's maybe 10-15 minutes of actual story that's stretched out to cover that runtime. There's a lot of padding, a lot of plotting. One of the big things that I've complained about over the last few of these movies, and something that I hate in movies in general, but these Hellraiser movies, these later ones, are really notorious for it, and this one is no different, is how eventually the script stops caring about making any kind of sense. And one of the tropes that's really bugged me in the last couple, and it's prevalent in this one as well, is as it goes on, there's several scenes that end as if the previous scene was a nightmare, where someone wakes up but they still kind of happened, but then it happens again and it keeps happening, and you're never really quite sure if the previous scenes were actually like just a hallucination, or if they were actually, you know, going on, or what was going. And it gets to a point where it's not like a well orchestrated psychological thing where it wants you to play with your mind and it's trying to challenge you to question what's real and what isn't. This is just like lazy ass screenwriting where we don't have to justify why we're now in this location with this thing happening. We're just there now and just deal with it. And it makes no sense, and it's just extremely frustrating to watch. And it makes it really hard to follow the through line of the movie as well. It's hard to kind of like establish a timeline.
And it's a terrible combination to have with a movie that's really boring, because you're constantly questioning yourself, like, okay, did I just miss something because like this movie sucks and like my mind is wandering, or is it because it's actually bad and not really like doing the job of guiding the viewer through a sensible plot?
Yeah. You mentioned the last couple of movies were somewhat notorious for having these sort of gruff main dudes who for some reason every woman in the vicinity wants to sleep with. This movie shakes that up a little bit in the sense that we have a female lead, which is nice, I suppose. Kari Wuhrer, who plays the role, I vaguely recognized her. It turns out she was the sheriff in Eight-Legged Freaks. That's what I think I know her from.
Okay. A fun movie.
Unfortunately, I mean, I'm not going to put it all on her. I'm sure the direction wasn't great, but the performance, like a lot of the performances, admittedly, but she has to like carry the movie, and unfortunately, I don't think she really does. There's a lot of really bad acting moments in this, coming from her specifically, especially when she has to act emotional or say something that's supposed to sound cool. It comes off as really tacky and really kind of like, see, I'm a badass kind of thing, and it doesn't work at all. The good news, because you would think, given the previous couple of movies of like constantly shoving sex into the main character, you'd be forgiven for assuming that they're going to get really, really bad with this one, given that we've got a female lead. That maybe she'll end up having sex like 100 times or something because the filmmakers want to have a ton of sex scenes where she gets her top off. That doesn't quite happen. There is some nudity in this, don't get me wrong. In fact, it actually has full frontal male nudity, which is a first for the series, I think. I don't remember any dick from previous movies, but but it treats it differently, where she just kind of seems to constantly be annoyed or rolls her eyes at any nudity that's around her, which, I don't know. Is that in and of itself like the screenwriter going, oh, this is how women react to nudity? They don't like it. It's just annoying to them, so I'll just write that in the script. I don't know.
Sure.
But it's I mean, her character is a blank slate. Her only characteristic is that she's constantly smoking. That's like that's all she has in terms of personality. She's supposed to be this, down and dirty reporter. She's introduced because she's infiltrated a crack den. And we never really get to hear what the expose she was doing or writing was about, or what it's exposing. But she just wakes up in a crack den and goes to the office, and it's like, okay, all right, perhaps. I mean,
it's very, like I mean, also, like you said, I don't want to necessarily say that like, that actor is bad or anything, but the character is just kind of boring. There isn't really much to it. It feels very shallow. It's like, very surface level of like, oh yeah, here's like, one of those like, I'm gonna do whatever I can to get the story kind of reporter, like, I don't know, I guess maybe like a like they want like a Lois Lane or something, but like there's no character to where it's just like it feels very bland. And then also it seems like if these are the kind of stories that she should be that she's doing, that like, I don't know, it seems like she would be at a much bigger organization or like more famous or anything. But I don't know, like when you see like the offices and stuff, it just feels like so small and tiny. Like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like they're a big reputable news source or anything.
I wonder if that's more to do with the budget of the movie than it is to do with the feeling they're going for. This is like a really lazy way to like describe something, but there's something so direct to video about the whole thing. Like everything about it, the type of plot that it's got, the level of characters that it has, the way it just sort of like stretches out time, that awful kind of like desaturated mid 2000 look that it's got going.
Yeah.
Everything about it just feels so unpleasant. And not like a horror movie where it's like, oh, this is disgusting and cool, or like, no, it's just unpleasant. Yeah. There's just nothing appealing about the whole thing. And it's because, you know, for the first like 10-15 minutes, you know, I wasn't completely out of it. It was bad, but I was kind of, okay, what flavor of bad is it going to be this time? And you're kind of taking in like the introduction to the character, you're taking into, you know, some other stuff, but by the time you get about half hour into this, you're just begging for it to end. You're like, no, like this movie has shown me everything it has to offer, pretty much. The one cool death that might have been nice is kind of ruined by like some terrible CG. Although that said, there is one really funny kind of death moment that I'll get to in spoilers, but that did make me genuinely laugh. I want to talk a little bit about the direction. For the most part, it's really just kind of bland, but there is moments and scenes where I think the director, Rick Bota, I feel like he really wanted to prove that he was a director. So he really over-directs some of the sequences. And the one that really stuck out to me, so this videotape sent into the newspaper office, and the editor's shown it to our main character, whose name I think was Amy? Yeah, Amy. And she's sort of sitting watching it, and for some reason, so typically in a scene like this, and there's not one correct way of doing it, there's a lot of different ways, and there's, you know, things, but typically a scene like this, and you're showing someone this footage that is getting kind of weird and intriguing and ultimately really kind of dark and something that's supposed to inspire their entire interest in the premise of the movie, right? You would maybe have the camera slowly tracking in as they're getting more interest or something like that. You know, have it be slow and kind of like it is this sort of like just gradual interest. Or maybe you would do a kind of similar thing where you're just watching over our shoulder at the footage the whole time and kind of like imagining what our reaction is to make us think about it. For some reason, this has lots of like quick shots of there's literally a snap zoom into her face like halfway through her watching the video, and then repeatedly like 3 or 4 times there's this intense close up that's just panning from like left to right going past her eyes, and it's like the movie's been on for like 6 minutes. You have not earned this level of intensity. She doesn't care about this that much yet. Like this is too much too quick. You're going overboard here. Slow down, director. Right. Take some Valium. You know, pace out your edits. Pace out your. I don't know. I get the impression this was a guy who did some music videos. I didn't check that, but that's my. That would be my guess. I'm going to click at his name while you give whatever insightful point I'm sure you're about to drop.
You know, the thing that actually is kind of a shame about this, and it might sound a little crazy to say, but like I think, you know, there are some good ideas here. Like I think the idea of a cult like in the Hellraiser universe, like actually, you know, it seems like it could be pretty cool, but like all this weird deader stuff and like bringing people back to life, like that's I don't know why that's there. Like just get rid of that, just make it like a cult that worships Pinhead, you know, that you know, sacrifices people to the box. Like it seems like such an easier you know, concept to kind of insert into the universe that, you know, I'm not saying with, you know, this creative team and stuff, like it's not like if they were doing it that it would still be you know, necessarily like a good movie, but I think, you know, you have some ideas there that could have made it a lot better. That I don't know, it's just weird that this is you know, the ultimate goal that you like ended up with.
There is actually one idea that I do think is quite good. I can't really talk about it till spoilers. There is an idea to do with the cult that I kind of like. The movie does nothing with it, and it just completely abandons it, and the execution is completely flawed. But there is one idea, like, but I'll get to that later. Did you know that the writer of this movie is also the writer of the 13 Ghosts remake?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the level of quality we're working here with, people.
I think that movie is at least a lot more entertaining. Like I would much rather take that movie over this one.
I find that one to be really like hollow, but I mean, yeah, it's better than this. let's not pretend otherwise. But it's just baffling. I think we're probably about ready to start getting into the details and spoilers. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers at the time of recording. So thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Al Tradesman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They're our Patreon producers for the month, at the time of recording, that is, which means they are $20 or more patrons. But you can support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month, and that $1 will get you access to the back catalogue of bonus episodes, which are on pause just now, but by the time this goes up, should be back soonish. And you get access to those. $5 tier, you get access to voting once that's back. But you do still get early access to all the episodes right now, even with the breaking recording with Tim on paternity leave. In fact, Tim will be off with well, there'll be a baby. I was going to try and roughly guess the age at this point, but I won't do it. I'll just say there's a baby. The baby is there. So yes. I left myself with no segue there, sorry.
That's right.
I put myself into a corner. And no one puts Tim's baby in the corner. It looks okay, I'll stop. Anyway, so go over to Patreon. If you can't do that, don't worry though. You can support us with no monies. You can simply hit the like button on YouTube. It helps us out a lot because it encourages the YouTube algorithm to share us out and recommend us to more people. So you can show your support in a number of different ways. Also commenting, subscribing, tweeting us out, all that kind of stuff.
Doing errands for us.
Sure, yeah, you can do some errands for us.
Yeah, it's a way to support us.
Absolutely.
Do some chores.
Yes. Tim will accept anyone to come around his house and do his laundry if anyone wants to volunteer.
Yeah, if anyone wants to trim my bush, please. But we got a bush outside our house, and sometimes it needs trimming.
Sure, yes. Sure. That was my next question. Do you actually have a physical bush outside the house? Do you have a hedge? Hedges is common a thing in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, I mean, we, during the summer, we trim them into animal shapes. So we got two big lions outside our door. Some places it is. It's not, I don't know. It depends on the area, obviously.
Yeah.
The city-ish more areas.
Well,
you're not
of
gonna
course.
have them.
I just I associate lots of houses having the hedges instead of the fence here. Again, not everywhere, but I just I was just curious if you had a hedge or a fence. That's all.
Yeah. Our backyard's all fenced in. The front yard we don't have anything. We keep thinking about putting stuff in. But yeah, nothing yet.
I think some automated turrets with motion sensing might be a good pick from Aliens. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to spoilers then, shall we? Full spoilers for Hellraiser Dead, as if you give a shit from this point on. So yeah, our main character wakes up in a crack den, goes and sees the tape, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll go to Budapest." I referred to this. I referred to the actor in this scene, the editor. Just ignoring the accent, I was getting kind of like a discount William Hurt cross with maybe I don't know, like someone in chat when I was watching this on stream referred to the lead as a discount Ashley Judd, and I'm like, oh, I can see that. Yeah, there's a bit of an Ashley Judd thing going on. But she goes to Budapest, and again, for some reason, there's this snap documentary style zoom as she's walking through the train station, which I thought was weird, but whatever.
Was this actually filmed in Budapest?
It was, because one of the bits of trivia that someone pointed out, because as soon as she got there, I was like, oh, this looks, I mean, I don't know exactly what Budapest looks like necessarily in terms of like a typical street, but I assumed immediately that, okay, so they got to film in Budapest cheaply, and that's why the movie goes to Budapest. Because
they had like a coupon or something. Yeah,
because I'm going to assume that the location was either different or was left blank, because it goes to some European city, and Budapest was the cheap one. Like, they got some sort of like tax exemption or something for shooting there. But
it was either Budapest or Vatican City, and then Budapest ended up being cheaper. So
yeah, I'd imagine so. Yes, other movies go to Vatican City. Though. We'll get to that. Actually, by the time this goes out, the other review that I'm alluding to has already went up a while ago. So, just go check out our Twilight New Moon discussion for some Vatican City gossip. Yeah. So part of the trivia was that there was like, I don't know if it was tension per se, but there was like lots of difficulties communicating. The local Romanian crew basically had trouble with like the American actors and like crew. They couldn't like communicate, and there was a lot of difficulties on set, a lot of production issues as a result. So yes, they shot in Budapest.
A lot of cloaked people just wandering onto the set saying, "What are you buying?"
Was he from that neck of the woods?
It seems like I don't know if they say the exact name of the island or village or whatever, but it's vaguely like Eastern European, I assume.
Sure. Yeah. What are you buying, stranger? He's got a very English accent though, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
So she goes to Budapest. The first thing she does is she goes to the address where the tape came from, and she has to bribe her way in.
She's a good reporter.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, strong investigative skills. She has to bribe her way into the apartment that the address actually is, and we get this sequence where there's like a dead woman who's sort of like strangled. Like, it's not quite hung herself, but she's got like a wire around her neck, and she's sitting in the toilet seat because it's really classy, of course. Like she's sitting there in her underwear in the toilet seat, just kind of dead. But she's holding the cube. She's holding the lament configuration. So there's a lot of like our main character kind of like, you know, reaching in to grab things, and like the dead person comes to life for a second, and she freaks out, and she ends up having to run away. It's all very, I don't know, really drawn out. Like, it's very dull. But basically, you know, there's this cult, there's this leader of the cult, the Deaders, and
it's such a stupid name. I really hate it.
This woman was like one of their members, because we didn't really mention what the cult, other than bringing someone back to life. They essentially get you to a point where you commit suicide, and then their leader, this dude, will sort of bring you back by kind of just, I don't know, kissing you or something like that. Yeah. That's basically it. Which actually leads to the timeline of events at this point is really hard to remember, because the movie just kind of goes from scene to scene without much rhyme or reason. But she has like an hallucination at one point where chains come out of the cube and like grab onto her face and stuff. And it's
so
just
bad.
It looks really rough, but it's just kind of whatever it is. But the funniest scene that I want to talk about is there's a scene where she's into the subway, and she kind of either sees or hallucinates the leader of this cult standing. He's got kind of, it's not quite a trench coat, it's not that long, but it's like a longer coat, and he's got this kind of lame 2000s hair. He's got these like goofy earrings, and he's trying to be like all mysterious, and you know, I'm mysterious. It's funny. I mean, I mentioned Twilight a minute ago, but it really does feel like he's going for the silent vampire. That's really what he feels like his mood is. He's not that. He's not a vampire, but that's kind of the mood that he's going for. But there's a scene where he jumps in front of the subway car, right? He jumps in front of the train. And this made me laugh so much. Not because of the jump itself, but I don't know if you noticed this, but when he jumps in front of the subway car, there's a second where he jumps up, and as it hits him, you can kind of see like a couple of legs kind of like just like come up from the front of the subway, and it made it feel really silly and ragdoll-esque, and it really made me laugh. And it's probably the second best moment in the movie. Best moment's coming up later, but give me a chuckle.
I'll have to go back in and rewatch. I don't think I noticed that specifically, but yeah.
Okay, everyone place your bets. Does Tim actually go back and put in the DVD and get to the scene to actually check it? I don't think he will.
Depends on how close we do the next one. So, I do get like, I mean, not that I'm excited to keep going with these movies, but it's like, all right, I've had this like DVD collection forever, and we got one more to go, and I mean, I don't know if this will entice you, but I think the next one is like the video game one.
Oh God. Hey, just think, Tim. This is the last pre-baby Hellraiser.
Oh my god, it'll be a whole new world.
I know. When we do the video game one, it'll be post-baby Hellraiser.
Yeah.
I wonder if your perspective will have completely changed. Don't you?
Maybe. I mean, I'll start looking at Pinhead the way a father looks at a child.
I don't know if holding and caressing Pinhead's good for your chest. I'll just say that. Get a lot of pins in your nipples there.
I mean, maybe. If Disney Plus can ever get, their hands on the Hellraiser franchise, baby Pinhead, I think, would be a great breakout character.
I'm just imagining a baby going, "The box, you opened it, we came."
We need changed.
Yeah, it's not we need chains, it's we need changed, yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some investigative stuff here. She ends up like running around some tunnels at some point and gets like stuck in between two walls. And all of a sudden, there's like a druid with a knife behind her who tries to stab her.
Yeah, so not very... I will give this a little credit. I did think this would have been a cool scene, like, by a better director. Like,
okay.
Because I did... Like, I mean, I guess the scene, like, wasn't horrible. Like, I was feeling, like, a little claustrophobic, but, like, I did like the idea of, like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. Like, you're in this very, very tight space, and there's someone, like, right behind you trying to get at you, and you can't move very fast. Like, oh, yeah, that's a cool idea. Again, I don't necessarily think, it was handled super well in this movie, but I at least give it credit, being like, okay, I kind of like where this is going.
That could be a good scene if it had a better director, a better script, a better actor, better cinematographer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh dear.
And then is this around the time too where there's a bunch of like CGI cockroaches or something?
Yeah, it's when she's like squeezing through the wall. There's like a bunch of CG cockroaches, which look bad. Like they look terrible. It may actually be the worst effect in the movie. There's some other dodgy CG, but that was the one that really stuck out as looking especially rough. Yeah. So there's a scene after this where she's fine at first, but she wakes up in bed and she screams. And it's soon after this because it's kind of related to being stabbed. Because and this is my favorite scene in the movie. Because she runs into the bathroom and she doesn't even feel any pain. She just notices after a while that there's a lot of blood on the floor, and she realizes she's got a knife sticking in her back, as you do. And what I love about this scene is the way she gets the knife out. I found to be truly inspired. She, she can't reach it because it's right in the middle of her back. So she basically puts the knife. She backs up against the cupboard, opens the cupboard, and shuts the cupboard door on the knife, and then just sort of like holds that in place as she like pulls herself forward. You know what? I was amused. I was amused by this because it wasn't like completely like it's over the top and silly, but it wasn't. It is taking itself far too seriously. But honestly, like if I was on my own in a bathroom and there was a knife in my back and I couldn't get it out with my hands, I'm like, yeah, this is not the worst method.
Sure.
Now, admittedly, maybe you should leave it in and let the hospital take it out. But still,
yeah. Now, I mean, this is a big thing in the movie. The whole the theme of the knife keeps coming back again and again. Yeah.
Themes, yes, this movie has themes.
Because I don't know if is it around this time or maybe a little later that she starts having those flashbacks, I guess, of her. That's her dad.
There's some very quick stuff. You don't really get the context for it until much later, but there's some very quick flashes of him like walking towards her and stuff quite early. Yeah.
Okay.
This leads to maybe the weirdest section of the movie where her tactic here is to put a towel that's folded on her back and duct tape it to herself, which is probably the worst makeshift sort of bandage I have ever seen in my life. And she's literally walking around the city with this humpback because she's got this like folded up towel like in the back of her jacket, and she's just pouring blood the entire way. There's an entire sequence here when she goes to the subway where she drips so much blood that she has to like knock over a newspaper stand just to hide the blood from a police officer who's walking by.
Yeah.
It's really ridiculous. In fact, the reason why she's going to the subway is she's trying to get to the subway sex cult club. Because this was a scene we didn't mention from earlier, is that she's given a piece of intel from like the first place she goes about this secret club, but it's not that secret. It's basically she goes to the subway, and the subway the car door opens, and there's a bouncer on the subway. There's a bouncer, and it's treated like she's trying to get into a club. And then when she's into the club, this is where all the nudity is. There's tons of topless people. It just like while she's talking to the main sleazy guy, it just cuts randomly to shots of these two women having sex. There's a guy walking around naked with his dong flapping around. Like the whole thing is just like, here's our nudity quota. Here, have it. But she's going back there. She wants more intel, so that's where she's trying to go at this point in the movie. But she's just dripping blood everywhere. But again, there's no rules in this movie because once she goes in there and she talks to the main guy for a bit, who by the way is feeling someone's ass by having them stand behind them. He's kind of doing it from behind. It's a weird position. But everyone just kind of turns out to be dead. Like everyone turns into a corpse when she's in there, and that's basically it. In fact, this is the first time we see a Cenobite. It's not the first time we see Pinhead. Pinhead does briefly pop up. I was leaving Pinhead stuff till later, but there is a Cenobite in this scene. Like probably the only new distinct Cenobite in the movie is this one that's got like a sewn face and is like sewing the skin of these corpses on the train. How does this place relate to Pinhead or the Cenobites? You know, how does this factor into the plot in any really shape or form? I don't know.
I mean, like Hellraiser, I don't know. It did remind me of another Clive Barker story / movie, Midnight Meat Train. Oh
yeah.
Other than that, though,
I did not like that movie when I saw it.
You know, it has its defenders. I don't love it.
So does OJ, so you know.
Okay, true. That's one I always want to go back to because I don't I didn't really remember liking it. I didn't hate it, but I always am curious if there's more to it. if I like it another go around.
I would not put money on it. Timothy, I would not put money on it. So, she ends up in a mental hospital at some point around. I don't know. Like, she actually gets arrested earlier on because she makes a commotion when she thinks she saw someone kill themselves in the subway, and her editor has to fly to Budapest to, to like bail her out. And he doesn't even seem mildly annoyed. In fact, this was the scene in the movie where I was convinced that he was actually evil and working for Pinhead or working for the cult.
Sure.
And his whole point is to lure people in because he felt so calm about everything. It was weird.
And the movie doesn't really like make a big show about it. Like, you think there would be something where like he would be getting a call and and it'd be like, all right, I'll be on the next plane out there. But the way that they just very casually have him like showing up there like the next day or whatever, like it made me just think like, oh wait, are they still over there or did he go with her originally or something? Like, yeah, it's just very like not a big deal.
Yeah, it feels like it doesn't feel like it's a different country from where it doesn't. Yeah. It feels like he just like had to drive 10 minutes to get to the police station. It doesn't feel like he had to fly to another country to get there. Yeah, it all feels very. Again, would you believe it? The scriptwriter just does things without caring about the logics or why or how or anything.
Who knows? Yeah.
So she's in a mental hospital, and it's like every generic mental hospital you've ever seen in a movie. She walks into this main area, and there's just like people like twitching, and you've got the white and black checkerboard floor and all the white walls. Although, at least most movies don't have kids mixed in with adults in these scenes. Like, yeah, what hospital, especially in a hospital where people, might act out or, potentially could be dangerous because of the condition. Oh yeah, we'll mix the kids in with the adults. Yeah, that sounds like a great plan.
I mean, that's what Rob Zombie showed us in his Halloween movie.
If that's what you're bringing up as an example, Tim, you've already lost the plot. That's all I'm saying. it's around here where the knife goes back into her back. Like, she starts bleeding again at one point. She has this flashback, I think, around here where we see what happened, where her father did assault her as a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the sort of thing where they didn't really have to go too far to imply that it may have been sexual. Like, it was this, awful thing. There is one shot that felt like it went a bit too far. It almost becomes, I don't want to say laughable because that makes it sound like the subject is laughable, and it's not. But there's a shot where it shows him. He sort of like puts her on the kitchen table, and she's kind of like tied down or whatever, and he's going for his belt buckle, and that's kind of where you could have just cut away, and that's fine.
Sure.
But there's like one close up of his head, kind of like going back and forth, as if it's like, oh wait, this is meant to be him mid action, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. The idea of this shitty little movie trying to even have this subject and its like plot it's not a good idea. It's bad enough as it is. This is not the sort of movie you want to be tackling such a sensitive subject. But that shot was just like, okay, all right. You tried to be edgy and as dark as you possibly could go.
Yeah, it's very gross. I mean, the movie already is like, dumb, whatever. But it's mostly harmless. And then like to kind of bring this up in the middle of it, it's like, Jesus, like you really didn't need this, especially because it's like, if you're gonna do something heavy like this, like maybe have a point to it. Like it feels so irrelevant to the plot. Like it is. I don't think it's like needed at all.
No, the whole point of it is it's why she stabs him, and that's why the theme of the knife, the recurring motif of the knife is important. But it doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things. I mean, maybe because eventually she ends up just waking up in the cult's room, right? And again, wakes up like it was a nightmare, whatever the previous scene was. And she's supposed to kill herself with the knife. So maybe the implication is that the way all these cult members kill themselves is always like tied to something they've done in their past. So maybe that's the relevancy that the movies try to go for. But it never actually tells us that or explains that. It just kind of does this, and we're like, okay, whatever. Go on. Does that mean the one who shot herself in the head in the videotape, did she shoot someone when she was younger? Is that what the movie's telling us?
Probably.
Yeah, the whole thing's weird because she does actually meet. I don't know if it's before this or after this, but she does actually meet the cult leader. She gets to their base, and she talks. And again, I think she just wakes up there bizarrely, but she talks to the leader, and the leader is so bad. Like his acting. He's always talking in this kind of hushed, like sort of serious. He's trying to be a vampire. That's the only way I can describe it, and it comes off as really stupid and cheesy. But he essentially wants her to join. And the one good idea is that halfway through the movie, maybe earlier, when Pinhead kind of like shows up and talks to her, he basically explains to her that this guy, this leader of the cult, is essentially at war with Pinhead. And he's building kind of an army, and he's looking for the person who's a deader who comes back, but also has the ability to solve the puzzle, to solve the box. And that she might be it, but he basically says, you can't do this, you can't like let him win this war, he's trying to take over my world. And I do actually kind of like the idea of someone who's used the box who then tries to find a way to fight back and is kind of like successfully, at least to some extent, waging a war against Pinhead and the Cenobites. That is actually kind of an interesting concept.
I would say if you like that idea, a much better way it's explored is in the Hellraiser comics, which essentially, basically, that becomes there. I think I have like two, like I forget if it's one or two like digital omnibuses that it comes with, but like it's actually like pretty good, and mostly revolves around Kirsty like kind of forming like this group of like Pinhead survivors that basically end up like taking it to Pinhead and trying going around and like finding boxes and destroying them. And then I actually am a big fan of that comic series. That
sounds kind of neat. A little Dreams Warriors-esque, one might say, in some ways.
Totally.
Which is the best Nightmare on Elm Street movie, don't at me. So I mean, the idea is good. The movie does nothing with it. Like Pinhead telling her about it is basically all we get, because it never really feels like that for the rest of the movie, in all honesty.
No.
And as you said earlier, when she's given the box to solve, she just throws it at the ground, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it opens, and everyone comes. What was weird to me though, so at the end of the movie, when she wakes back up there and she's expected to kill herself, and she sort of refuses to do it, and she throws the box, Pinhead and the Cenobites appear. It comes with two Cenobites, the stitched up one that we saw previously, and like another one who has like black tape over his eyes, and that's kind of it. That's the Cenobite. But basically, Pinhead kills the main dude with the chains, rips him apart. It'd almost be a fun death, but the CG when he rips apart is a bit, iffy.
I think like when the chains and stuff were kind of going into him, like I was like, all right, it's not bad. It's not great. It's not like the worst thing in the world. But then like once it kind of starts tugging, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But then, yeah, the actual explosion ripping apart is just like just horrible CGI.
Yeah, and then kills all the followers in the cult. Kills them all. Which, by the way, we even mentioned that the dead girl in the toilet from earlier, like, occasionally shows up to talk to our main character and give her like some weird cryptic advice, and it's just like nonsense. It's just bullshit movie nonsense. Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and then it's funny when all these again really bad CGI of just these chains going through all the cult members, and then the joke I made was like, when they go through, I was like, oh, thank God, we were all standing in a line, because it's just like they're all just like perfectly like, together for the chains to go through. And
yeah, they're in two rows because it didn't kill the rest of them like the main guy, where it's lots of chains come and like pull them apart. He has one big thick chain that just goes through all of them in one. It's like in a video game, you have that special ability that will lance through everyone.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Yeah.
And also, like, again, we're like, the rules are so like up in the air, because like, according to the franchise, isn't it usually like, hey, someone solves the box and then the Cenobites show up, and then the person who solved the box, is kind of taken away or whatever. Like this, it's just like, all right, well, they're just killing everyone because it's like, hey, we're here, we don't like you.
Well,
like,
well, one of the weird things, well, I assume that the main guy solved the box, and that's why he's like waging this war. They mention that he's using the power, because the main guy, that's main bad guy, the cult leader, he is like supposedly a descendant of the Toy Maker, so he believes the box belongs to him, and they kind of imply that he's using power from Pinhead's world to do what he's doing. But that's the extent we get, but we never hear anything else about how he's bringing people back from the dead. It's never explained or mentioned or brought up.
And the idea of him being a descendant, did they reference that earlier? Because when they started talking about it at the end here, I was like, wait a minute, did I miss something? Like, again, it's totally possible that I could have missed something because it's a boring movie.
I don't think they mentioned it. This felt out of nowhere for me too, because I reacted to it when wait, what?
Yeah, I was like, okay.
Yeah, real stupid stuff. And I was actually thinking that because Pinhead kind of like recruited Amy, because he's like, hey, you can't do this, like, like I want to win, I need to win this war, or because Pinhead's never felt necessarily like an evil character. His thing, at least originally, was always he's there to punish the people who like open the box, but he's not necessarily like looking to kill people and seek. And later movies obviously changed that and whatever. But I thought, like, because he'd kind of like not made a deal with her, but kind of tried to recruit her, that he wasn't going to like take her. That he wasn't going to kill her because she essentially made this choice to like bring him out here and let him win the war. But instead he's like, well, now you opened the box and the rules are that I have to kill you now. So the movie ends with her choosing to commit suicide so that neither Pinhead or the cult guy get her soul. And then the movie ends, like, I mean, we'll get to like a scene that it kind of ends with, but the final scene ends with like a really sad moment where it looks like a photograph of her and the editor and like a memory going by with sad piano music playing before it rolls credits. And I'm like, movie, in what world do you think we were emotionally attached to this character? or felt that the movie was building up to her committing suicide to save her soul? Like, none of this landed at all.
It was so funny. Like, she they act like it's this big moment, and she stabs herself in the stomach, and then when that happened, I turned to my wife and I was like, wow, it's just like the same way she stabbed her father. And then my wife was just like, I don't care.
Tim's wife speaks for all of us in this situation, I think. Yeah. So remember how earlier I said that I suspected the editor was like secretly working for Pinhead or the cult because the way he sort of like sent her there and then seemed so nonchalant about everything that was happening.
Sure.
This scene at the end, like it ends with this photograph of him and her, showing that he cares about her and she means something to him. But the actual scene does nothing but reinforce the idea that he's evil and that he's sending people to join this thing. Because he basically gets a knock at the door in his office and his assistant's like, hey, your 2 o'clock's here. And then walks this young, pretty woman. And you're like, wait, what sort of creepy place is this going with? And it turns out this is a new reporter who's inexperienced. He's like, hey, I just got a tape and you may be interested in this, implying that he's about to send her down the same path. And maybe he's just a skeevy like editor who like wants to like keep throwing reporters at this until he gets a story. But it really played across to me. He's like, no, he's sending victims to this. This is weird.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it might be more interesting if he felt like a character that was more present in the movie, or if you really gave a shit, or like if you thought it'd be something they're gonna follow up on. But yeah, as is, it's just like, all right, who cares?
Yeah, can you believe the last one and this one are directed by the same person? They don't feel similar at all. You would think that since it's the same director that he wanted to like continue a theme or continue like an idea that he had in the last one. Especially since the last one actually tried to connect to Kirsty in the original movie in some way. This one and he directs the next one as well. The video game one is the same guy. He directed 3 of these in a row. What a claim to fame. Yeah.
Is he had a vision?
He's mostly a cinematographer, apparently.
Okay.
But if I look at his directing credits, this Rick Bota is his name. He did these 3 Hellraisers were his first movies.
Wow.
All 3 of them. And then he's done a lot of TV episodes. I'm just seeing if he's done anything. He did a movie called Love Me. And that's it. He's done a couple of TV movies, and other than that, it's just been TV episodes. And even the TV shows, I don't even recognize the names of, to be honest. I know he did one Supernatural. That's the only, and Vampire Diaries. Those are the only ones I recognize the names of. Every other one's just like, I don't know what Haven or Bitten or Between or Unforgettable are. Like these,
jeez,
so generic. So generic.
All right, well, it sounds like a worksman. He's got his hand in a lot of different pies, I guess.
Yeah. It does nothing. The movie does nothing to give us a character, make us care about her. It does nothing to like have any kind of like through line to like make us intrigued by the journey she's on. Every time the script just wants to have another set piece moment, it just has her wake up in a location and just expects us to go with it. And it's just annoying. It's one of the most annoying low budget movie tropes. I hate it so much. And it's like I will happily watch a crappy slasher movie or something like that is really bad way more than this, because this infuriates me. This just waking up in a new location, and this movie does it like 5 or 6 times. It's really egregious. So
yeah,
I think
it's bad.
I mean, technically, like the last couple might be worse overall because they're more nonsensical, but this one I might dislike more just because it's it's so boring. Like, yeah, it's so boring. So I may actually hate it more, even though I don't know if objectively it's actually worse than the last couple. But yeah,
I mean, at least for me so far, the series is like a pretty straight, like, through line of descending quality. Like, first one's really great. I think second one's pretty good. Third one, is fun, and then like fourth one is like, all right, yeah, it's bad, but maybe it's a few interesting things here or there. Maybe it's kind of funny to laugh at. And then like fifth one's like, all right, now it's starting to get bad. And then sixth one's like, now it's even worse. Like
the only thing I disagree with that is I think I like 3 more than 2, but that's
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah, those are like a little interchangeable, depending on yeah, your style. But I think they're both good. The first three I would be a pretty staunch defender for, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like everything after that is just like a very noticeable dips in quality.
Yep. It's it what wows me as well. When we talk about all these big franchises, we talk about Friday and we talk about Nightmare and Halloween. Like most of these franchises, most of their entries were in the 80s and then it slowed down. You only get one or two in the 90s, maybe one in the 2000s. Like it really slowed down, unfortunately, for some of them. Hellraiser's a weird one where it did start a little bit later in the 80s, but most of its entries are from the 2000s. They're actually relatively new, which is they just kept pumping these things out for some reason. It's weird. This is the third one from the 2000s, and there's at least a few more. So
yeah,
it's really odd. But I guess we're at the point where we're going to rate them. Tim, please put us out of our misery. What are you giving it?
I mean, I feel like you can't really go higher than I'm waffling between like a 2.5. Maybe I'll be extremely super generous and give it a 2.5 just because like a few of the bad scenes were at least like kind of like made me chuckle and like like the Pinhead CGI chain stuff at the end, that is very dumb, but at least if the movie was full of stuff like that, I think it would be like a fun cheesy movie to watch, like not good by any means, but at least it'd be more interesting and entertaining versus this, which is just a slog. Maybe the most credit you can give it is like, yeah, a few dumb scenes like that are kind of cheesy fun, and then maybe an idea here or two that, okay, that could spark something actually good, but obviously, no one in here is pulling it off. But yeah, 2.5.
I'm going to have to go with a straight 2. That's all I can muster. It's really bad. I'm only not going lower just because there's examples of things that are even worse. But this franchise, like I think when we get to the end of this, because I said this as I was watching this movie in particular, that obviously there's some weak like sequels to so some people who are not as into horror or they've only touched sort of the more mainstream stuff. They'll talk about how bad the franchises are that go on for like 10 entries and like. They'll really like hate some of the sequels to things, and talk about Friday the 13th. Like people will really pick on a couple of those movies, and some of them which I really disagree with because I love 8, for example, and everyone loves to tear apart Manhattan. But I dig that movie a lot. But I'll say this right now. I think Friday the 13th Part 5, which is one that typically most people don't like, is way better than almost every one of these Hellraiser sequels since 4. And like it's just so funny to me that the average quality of these Hellraiser movies, by the time we get done with this, like the average score, if we took our ratings for all the franchise, I'm positive it would be a lower average than any of the other big I mean, maybe Leprechaun because that's shit. But
I mean, I think that like the big difference is that with stuff like Friday the 13th or Halloween or whatever, even the later examples that are bad, they still feel like actual movies. Like again, these just feel like such afterthought, like obviously totally different scripts that just hammer the Pinhead stuff in. Like I wouldn't be surprised if you're doing like an oral history of it if it is some type of rights things where they just don't want to lose the rights, so every couple of years they have to shovel out this garbage.
I mean, I maybe this is a bold statement, but I would say that Halloween Resurrection is a better movie than the last 4 Hellraisers we've done.
I mean, yeah, given the choice, like maybe Hellraiser 4, like I have like some weird nostalgia and cheesy love for that. Like not a good movie by any stretch, but I mean 5, 6, and 7, you put that up against Halloween Resurrection, I'm gonna choose Resurrection for sure.
I'm going to watch Busta Rhymes fly kick Michael Myers in the face, and it's stupid and it's bad, and there's a lot of things I hate about that movie. There's a lot of things I hate about Halloween 5. Even Halloween 6, like I mean, that's a mess of a movie, but there's at least some interesting curiosities and, like, you know, how it ended up that way. And there's, you know, like, look, young Paul Rudd, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too. Like, with a lot of these, you know, franchise movies, I do think, even though the ones that are really bad, like, for example, like Nightmare, you know, my favorite franchise, the, you know, sixth one, Freddy's Dead, is horrible. Like, I really hate that movie, but at least it's bad in an interesting way. Like, there's, you know, like, there's stuff you kind of want to learn, like, behind the scenes, like, why did they go with this or whatever, like, you know, why would they, whose idea was this or whatever, why are they shoveling this backstory in? But, like, again, these Hellraiser movies, they're not bad in an interesting way. They're just, like, you can tell, like, why they're doing these decisions they're doing. It's like, oh yeah, they're just making cheap, you know, shitty movies just that are just banking on a name. Like, you know, that there's nothing actually interesting about it.
Maybe a big part of this is just that, you know, these movies we're talking about from these other franchises are all theatrical releases. They're all movies that they still believe can make money at the box office. So there's a level of effort put in, even in the really bad ones, that isn't here in these direct-to-video Hellraiser sequels. And it's not that you can't have a good direct-to-video movie, because you can.
Exactly.
But for the most part, it's just quick, dirty, no creativity, just to pump out a movie that's got a name on it. And this is what we get. So
yeah, like, I always, like, to me, there's, like, a difference between, like usually if I'm talking about, like, a movie that's good, like, I'll usually just say, like, you know, an independent movie or, like, low budget movie or something. Like, if I'm talking about, like, a movie like this that's just, like, a, you know, there's, like, no effort or thought behind it, and it's just kind of put out to put out, like, that to me is when I'll, like, let's say, like, direct to video, because it is kind of like a dirty word, you know, and it direct to video, like, it doesn't necessarily, you know, it doesn't mean something necessarily bad, but I always, like, think of that more when I'm thinking of, like, these kind of movies versus just, like, a, you know, independent low budget movie that just didn't get a theatrical release, you know.
Yeah, it's come to mean that. It really has. So there you go. That's Hellraiser Dead. If you made it this far into the review, please put the word I don't know.
The knife, chains, Budapest, Subway.
There's nothing interesting to, like, refer to.
Bush.
There was a scene in a toilet seat, so toilet. Put the word toilet. It's also very apt for the quality of this movie. Put the word toilet in the comments if you made it this far. Tim, you're going to do your pose for the thumbnail, so here we go. 3, 2, 1, pose. Perfect. Oh dear. Alright, so this has been Screams After Midnight. This has been our discussion of Hellraiser Deader. I can only dread the later entries, because, I mean, we're almost at the point where we're going to lose Doug Bradley as Pinhead, so we're actually going to have a different actor in that role after the next couple. So
I mean, I like Doug Bradley, but I mean, I feel like he's been phoning it in the last couple of movies.
Can you blame him?
No, of course not. Obviously.
Yeah. So
but I mean, maybe it's, like, you know, the makeup or whatever, or, you know, the director, but when he appears in these later movies, he doesn't have, like, the gravitas he did, like, in the, you know, earlier ones.
I can't argue with that. But yeah, so let us know what you thought of the movie if you've seen it in the comments. Like and subscribe, super important, as is patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, as we mentioned earlier. Go and have a look at all that stuff. You can catch us on Twitter at Screams Midnight for updates and shenanigans and whatever else. So thank you very much for joining us. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.